Thank you for joining us today. I am so excited. It's a real privilege to be here with both of you. So I will just add, between the two of you, you have shaped culture for super relevant brands. And today I'm excited to dig into that more and learn how you decide what matters versus what's noise. And hopefully this group can walk away with some good pointers. So let's get into it. Okay, so you've operated at the intersection of social conversation and breaking news for brands like Microsoft. You've both been at Apple, Verizon, and Keena specifically, you obviously now at Samsung. In a world where every spike potentially looks like a trend, how do you and your teams distinguish between a fleeting fad and a durable cultural moment, and how do you consider the balance of both? Because you don't necessarily want to ignore the fads.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think the speed of culture is actually not even about speed, it's about intention. And I think you mentioned spike, but every spike actually looks like a trend if you're only looking at the surface level. And I think that distinction is really important, as well as understanding and separating noise from meaning. So at Samsung and across various brands I've been a part of, you have to have filters in terms of the questions that you ask yourself. One, is this a momentary behavior, or is it an actual cultural movement? I think, does this align with our values as well as our brand ethos? I think it's also important to recognize, are you going to be a part of the cultural movement, or are you actually borrowing and taking from it versus investing in it? And I think it's also important to look at the fact that trends are fleeting, right? But having a durable culture is also equally important, ensuring that it's aligning back to your values, your beliefs, your brand ethos, and also being obsessed with your customer. You know, if they see us contributing to a trend, are they going to be like, oh yeah, that matches, that's on point? Or are they going to say, well, you did it for the clicks and visibility?
Yeah, and I think that's a key point about what your customers care about.
Right.
Yeah, sticking to that. Okay, and just building on that, Marcus, you wrote a Forbes article. I'm very biased and thought it was fantastic. It was about Pinterest Predicts, and it's really foresight into the trends that are coming. How should brands practically use signals like Pinterest Predicts rather than react to whatever's trending for the week or the TikTok video that's spiking?
So I think Keena put actually perfectly. The idea is that when we're talking about culture, what we're talking about is the system by which people translate the world. Raymond Williams is one of the most profound cultural scholars. And he said his favorite definition for culture is that culture is a realized signifying system. It's a realized meaning-making system. It's the way by which we see a cow and some see leather, some see a deity, and some see dinner. Which one is it? Depends on who you are and how you see the world. So when marketers are getting all of these signals, all of these different messages, these different nodes of data, the notion, our job then is to take and to say, what does it mean? The challenge for marketing as a discipline is that when we think about culture, we think about culture as a shortcut for popularity. You ask most marketers about culture, they say, let's get our idea out in the culture. What they really mean is, let's be popular. What's happening in culture? What are they doing? What are they watching? Where are they going? But popularity and culture are not analogous. Popularity is the extent to which something is known. It's about familiarity and pervasiveness. Culture is about meaning. And the differences are gargantuan. So when we're looking at mounds of data that come from the social web, be it the Pinterest of the world, be it discourse that's happening on Instagram, be it the challenges and trends that are going on in TikTok, the idea is to take the alchemy of all of these points, the cacophony that they sort of come together to produce, and say, what does it mean? Not for me, but for the consumer, the people, the meaning makers.
That's awesome. That's big. I think that differentiation between popular and culture is key.
And I think the speed aspect is important too. Just because you're fast and first also means that you could potentially be forgettable. And I think that's an important aspect of as well, that we sometimes as marketers, will forget. But how you sustain cultural relevance is not by being first or by being the quickest out there. It's about ensuring that you are aligning back to what your audience and your brand beliefs are.
Okay, I want to expand on that a little bit too. So Marcus, once a brand decides that a moment is worth showing up for, that they are leaned into a trend, what differentiates those brands from showing up like they're outsiders? What makes them seem like they're truly authentically part of that
Yeah.
moment?
So this is, I mean, I'm like just jumping on everything. I'm like, yeah, co-signing everything.
You're the
So we
greats.
talk about like, what's the brand's point of view, right? My friend Eric Holgren, and use this example all the time because I think it's just great. When he talks about engaging with culture, he likens it to a car. You could drive a car, which means you can lead culture, right? And you lead culture by contributing new artifacts, behaviors, language, and cultural production. Typically artists do this, right? Last year, or 24 rather, it was the Summer of Brat, right? Charlie XCX brought new language to the discourse and led culture. But maybe a brand says, look, that's too much for me. I can't be leading culture. Then you don't drive culture, you ride shotgun. And that is, I don't lead it, but I contribute some point of view that I might have, right? So if we're talking about a particular thing, I see the world this way, and here's how I'm going to contribute to the discourse. Great. The third, last, and worst way to engage with culture is to suck tailpipe. And that's what happens with most brands. They don't have a point of view in the world. They just jump on a thing and say, my pizza is brat too. And you're like, damn, it was cool till you said it. Now it sucks. And this is normally what happens. Most brands don't know how they see the world. They don't know what they believe. They just make a sharper razor than the next guy. So they look at opportunities to say, hey, I mean, I don't know if someone's out here, but whatever, just keep it trill. Like when Taylor Swift got engaged, and like Panera Bread posted something that said, she said yeast. And I was like, oh, are you kidding me right now? I mean, no shade, but shade. And the idea there is like, yo, clearly you don't have a point of view about the world beyond your product. And when you try to engage in cultural discourse with no point of view about the world beyond what you create, it comes off really, 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 really bad. So as we see these moments and go, oh, this is something we want to be a part of, the question is, what are we going to contribute to it? Are we going to lead it? Or are we going to engage in it based upon the way we see the world? But it starts with understanding, how do we see the world?
Yeah.
I agree with that. I was going to say, especially within the Gen Z audience, I mean, they will hold you accountable, right? I mean, they're not just like listening to what you're doing; they're also auditing what you're doing, right? And I think they can easily, smell when it's an outsider or an insider. Are you taking or are you contributing from it? So I agree with you 100% on that.
Don't just be on the sidelines.
Yeah,
You got to contribute something.
Yeah, I think that or shut up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, not all conversations are for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, look, I'm from Detroit. We are hockey town, as we know, but I don't know about hockey. So if y'all start talking about hockey, I got nothing to say. Like, seriously, it stops at like Wayne Gretzky or Steve Yzerman. That's it for me. And because I have so little to contribute, I shut the hell up. And I think that that's how brands need to also. You got nothing to do with this. You have no point of view about this thing. Just shut the hell up.
Yeah. Selectivity, I think, is a superpower there.
Yes, exactly. Curation. You're being selective based on how we see the world.
Exactly.
Okay. We're going to pivot to challenger brands. So Keena, Samsung leads into this challenger identity. Team Galaxy creators, you have a partnership with Unrivaled, which for those out there who don't know is a new 3x3 women's basketball league, which premiered a few days ago, right?
January 5th.
Yep,
Go check it out if you haven't already. It's on TNT, Max, and other streaming shows.
Tune in. So how do you stay bold and nonconformist while still being disciplined and results driven in deciding which cultural moments and partners are truly worth leaning into, especially as you think about this challenger brand mentality?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that being a nonconformist is not about being impulsive. It's about being intentional and selective, like we were talking about. Unrivaled is probably a great example of that. It was like you mentioned, it's the first 3-on-3 women's basketball league for WNBA players. It was something that we intentionally wanted to partner with them on. And I think it's also important to recognize that that was a partnership that we didn't want just to be like a sponsorship, right? We wanted to ensure that we were actually heavily investing and contributing to the women's sports category. And that showed up across, I would say, all platforms. Samsung is deeply embedded into the ecosystem of Unrivaled, whether it's pre-game, during the game, after the game, really elevating those fans' experiences, but also ensuring that we're keeping true to the sport, because it's all about the athletes, the fans, fans and elevating the experiences. And I think when it comes to elevating or evaluating whether a partnership is the right one for us, I mean, you have to have questions that you need to ask yourself. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about, one, does this fit within our brand ethos? Does it align with our values? Is this the right partner? And I think there's an art of saying no, right? And I think sometimes, right, you don't want to say yes to everything because you're not going to come across authentic. And there's power in that, right? I mean, I think we've seen when some brands say yes to everything, and then what you actually stand for, it gets a little bit muddy in there.
Yeah. So we at Pinterest actually saw from search on the platform that our audience was leaning into tunnel outfits for the WNBA. So we sponsored with the Liberty, and one of the things messaging back to us was, okay, that feels very authentic. We're a challenger brand as well. So I'm curious, Marcus, how do you make sure it doesn't feel performative? And part of that, I think, is you're saying no. I think the other piece is, as you both talked about, like when you have an opinion, step in, otherwise take a step back. But what else to make sure that you're not really showing up poorly there?
My take, honestly, is that I think that it's all performative. There's a sociologist named Irving Guthman who, like, it's this profound metaphor where he likened social living to the theater. He borrowed from William Shakespeare, all the world is a stage, we're all merely actors. He said, if that be the case, then when we engage in social life, we adopt costumery for the character we want to play, we adopt the script, the mannerisms, all the things. And which is why sociologists refer to people as social actors, because we're all acting. And we, as stewards of brands, we are performing based on the character that the brand chooses to play. So I don't think performative is actually a pejorative. The challenge, as Irving Guthman says, is that, be careful the character you choose to play, because before long, the mask will become your face. And the challenge is that brands will play a character for a long time and be like, oh, this ain't hot in the streets no more. Let's put on a new mask. Yo, wait a minute, what you doing? Like, Hoppo, who this? And because of that issue, because of that, it seems inauthentic. It seems like, wait a minute, you feel like you've been taken for a ride. So my take is that choose the character you're going to play based on how you see the world, realizing that that character may evolve with the context of culture, right? Nike's always been about every human body is an athlete, but the way they've communicated that over the years have changed because the backdrop of culture in which we are engaging athleticism has changed, but it's still the same character, and they perform it well when they did, and then they didn't, and they're trying to do it again. So for brands writ large, we have to be very, very clear on who we are, how we see the world, how we show up in the world accordingly, and do it consistently so that the mask truly becomes our face.
I agree with that. I think the consistency part is really important for Unrivaled. This is our second year in partnering with them, but also equally as important is performative as well as proof.
Yeah.
Right? Because exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about how you show up externally into consumers. And I know we discussed a little bit the importance of what's happening inside your organizations to really take advantage of that. So I'd love to hear from both of you. How do you make sure your teams are actually living in the culture and not just marketing it? And then do you have any practices or rituals that you recommend that marketers deploy within their organizations to make sure, again, it feels authentic and that they're leaning into the right things at the right moment?
I'll go back to Irving Guthman, this idea of the stage. As marketers or in companies in general, we obsess over the front of stage, how we present ourselves to the public, be it the street, be it consumers, be it shareholders, whatever the case may be. We think about how we project ourselves. But the front of the stage is only as good as the back of the stage. So as we're thinking about engaging in consumer culture, we have to optimize the back of the stage, which is organizational culture. Now, what are those two things predicated on? Thankfully, it's all culture. And culture is anchored in our identity and our shared beliefs, our ideologies. So as we think about the communities, the tribes, the congregations we want to engage in the marketplace, we think about where there's cultural congruence. The same thing goes in our organization. What do we believe? right? As an organization, what do we believe? And then we hire people and we engage people who see the world similarly. For instance, like Angela's here from Patagonia. Like they believe that like they are activists. They just so happen to sell outdoor gear, right? They believe in climate clean. They're never going to hire someone who's like, look, man, climate change is a hoax. What are you talking about, fam? You could be the best strategist on the planet, but if you don't subscribe to the shared imagination of the organization, this is never going to work. So the same way we preach the gospel about the brand out in the world, the leadership inside the organization has to preach the gospel about the organization internally as well, such that everyone inside, just like everyone on the outside, are using the brand as a way to express their own identity and cultural subscription.
I agree with that 100%. You can't build external culture if the people inside the building actually don't believe it and subscribe to it, because it's then going to come across as not very authentic. But I think there's a couple of things we can do. One is that within my organization, which I love the fact that we are tapped in because we represent diverse voices as well as different backgrounds. And we also encourage an environment where there is trust, there is clarity, and there is ability to push, right? Whether it's a creative brief and we're like, that feels off, right? Are we actually talking to our customers in an authentic way? And I think it's also important too to have an immersive environment where you're not just focused on building culture, campaigns, strategies through decks and insights. I tell my team, do not spend the majority of your time in the building. Why? That doesn't make any sense. If you want to connect back to a cultural movement, to your audience, you need to be ingrained and deeply connected to the influencers. Don't just sign them. Like, spend time with them. How do they move? When I was at Beats by Dre, we spent a lot of time with LeBron James, literally having him wear the earbuds as he was like shooting in the gym, right? I mean, you have to be fully invested in someone's entire life, whether it's creators, influencers, athletes, partners, the community, right? You have to show up so that you're actually building with versus building about.
Yeah. And I know, Keena, you're new to Samsung. So this
2.5 months in.
Yeah.
But killing it though.
I'm trying.
Absolutely killing it.
I'm trying.
You ain't trying, you're doing it.
Trying.
You're doing it.
Trying to
you're doing
bring us into an innovative, modern marketing organization.
You're killing it. You're killing
So
it.
all of this is clearly top of mind for you, especially as you start. And I'm just curious. I mean, do you feel like how are you showing up to make sure that people feel like they're safe to dissent, for example, and to bring these different ideas?
Well, I think one, I try not to always be the first voice that speaks, right? Because I find that when the leader speaks first, it doesn't give the lane for others to sometimes speak. So I tend to operate in an environment where I provide just the space, right? Psychological safety and space where people can bring their ideas, their creativity, and also challenge. There's nothing wrong in asking me why.
Yeah.
Should we do that? Yeah. Right? So I think creating that space where people feel they have permission to challenge. You can't be a challenger brand if the people inside your brand and your team can't challenge the work. Right? So I think that's a really important piece of it as well. And I think just encouraging a behavior where people can, yes, we have goals, we have, sales targets and market share and all of these things, but I think creating an environment where people can be creative and also setting that aside, I think is also an important part of it.
I'm so into this work right now. So I've been studying organizational culture. Book comes out in 2027, just a shout out. And by the way, we just launched a podcast today about this very thing. And that's shameless. I don't care.
I love it.
But what you have articulated is exactly what the literature continues to support. That brands who have a belief, a shared imagination about the world is the start. But the leaders in the organization have to not only inspire that belief in other people, but model it in the way in which they go about their work. You can't just say it. You got to, like the Migos said, you got to walk it like you talk it, right? Like your behaviors and your actions have to be aligned to a greater ideology. I think that the best leaders understand this. I mean, we've worked at the same places before, and you've seen the difference between like that person is a great leader and that person is a good manager. And the differences are, they're very distinct. Like, manager's job is to control, right? I'm trying to get the most out of you, get the most productivity, and I do that by constraints. Leadership's job is to inspire, right? To pull the things out of you, and instead of saying, it's like a map and a compass. A map says we're going here, turn left, turn right, go right there. And if you go off the route, you're in trouble. But leaders go, we're trying to head there. That's the North Star. Who has ideas how to get there best? And to be able to inspire that and then model that in the work that you do as a leader, those are the differences between great companies and good companies.
I love this. Okay, last question for both of you. Well, slightly different. So, Marcus, what's one thing marketers should stop doing tomorrow if they want to market at the speed of culture?
We need to stop looking at people as demographic boxes. That is the absolute worst. W.E.B. Du Bois says the tragedy of the age is not that men are poor because we all know something about poverty, not that men are wicked because what is good, not that men are liars because what is truth, but nay, we know so little about ourselves. We don't understand people. We put people in boxes based on their age, race, gender, household income, geography, or generationalism, and then we're surprised they don't act like the label we assigned them to. And we do this knowing that it's wrong, but it's easy for us. And when we are venturing to engage in culture, we do so in an effort to facilitate relationships that lead to outcomes. And you cannot get into a relationship when I see you as some generalized box that doesn't represent who you truly are. There's no way that you get intimacy that way. And if you want intimacy, you've got to see people for who they are. And the data that's available to us through ethnographic and ethnographic means helps us get closer. But it's you, the marketer, needs to have curiosity to want to know beyond the zeros and ones, who is this person?
And to your point, beyond the zeros and ones, like your teams need to be able to pull out the insights, right? It can't just be, oh, we see 30% of our audience is 18 to 24. Those people are very different. So,
and what are insights? Meaning.
Right.
We talk about pulling out insights. We're just pulling out meaning. And how do we make meaning? Through culture. Bada boom.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Okay. Keena, on the flip side of that, what do you think marketers need to start doing in order to really operate at that top level? Especially, a lot of companies are being hit today with the need to be more profitable. Their teams are becoming leaner. So I think it's a harder job than ever. What should they start doing?
I mean, similar to what Marcus said, I think you have to focus on the people. Like, that is so important. I think a lot of times we tend to look at insights and data trends and projections of what's going to happen in the next 5 years. But if you focus actually on the people and also considering the fact it's proximity, like I tell my team all the time, I think I mentioned it earlier, was that you actually have to get out there and be a part of the culture. I think sometimes we find ourselves like reading decks and like interpreting it into like meaningful insights, and then we're building a strategy and a campaign and audience segmentation, all of these things. But like, when was the actual moment where you actually talked to USH, US Hispanic? One of the things that I did in my career when I was running the North America region for both North America and South America, I was like, I can't sit here in LA and read all this data and insights about what's happening, particularly in Mexico. I need to actually go to Mexico City, right? I need to be a part of the culture, understand, ask questions, meet with partners, but also meet with customers. And so I think that we need to, probably one of the biggest opportunities for us as marketers is really move out of this mindset of like decks and buildings and actually go where people are, because proximity is actually going to be the superpower and the game changer to how we become better marketers.
Amazing. All right, well, I just want to thank both of you. I think that the audience is walking away with a blueprint of how to be successful, especially in leaning into culture. So thank you, Marcus. I think you have your next guest.
Thank you so much. You were amazing.
No, this was great. Thank you, guys.
The podcast called From the Culture. From the Culture.
I'm going to subscribe.